Hello and welcome to the Xtra Edge, a sports analytics podcast powered by KINEXON Sports. I'm Dave Grinjinski, and today, we got a good one for you folks. We're talking with Jeremy Portillo. Now, Jeremy is a sports performance coach for the University of Evansville's men's basketball team, the Purple Aces. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us on the Xtra Edge.
Absolutely honored to be here. Thank you very much.
Now, Coach, I know you've been with the program for almost a year now, and you're also working with the men's and women's track team. You're also working with the men's and women's golf team, but it's the basketball team that I am thoroughly intrigued by, because this year you have won more games than in the past 6 years. And folks, I'm not talking about just a couple of games. The win total at this point is dramatic. In fact, you're 2 games over 500, and you haven't even recorded a double-digit win season since 2019 and 2020. That isn't until this year. You've blown by the double-digit win total. So, Coach, I mean, first of all, congratulations on all of your accomplishments so far this year.
Thank you to the sport coaches. I mean, I got to give them all the credit.
And we're gonna get into that, because on this podcast, as you know, we talk about, collecting sports data and analytics, and then, the insights you get from it, and then the actions that you take. Data, insights, and actions. That's what we're about here. And so let's talk about the data first. And I know you're using it, and I also want to talk to you about microdosing. I know that's a big thing with you. I want to get into that with you as well. But first, I want to find out about you, Coach. I mean, you're one of the younger coaches that I've talked to, so I'm very curious to find out, how did you find sports data? Was it something that you were always interested in? How did you start using sports data and analytics?
So it actually started, I'm 25 right now. So I grew up with 2 older brothers, and I don't know if you've ever heard of the successful home DVD program P90X or not, but I started doing P90X when I was about 10 years old. We were like the games household, where people like the neighborhood kids would come over and they throw P90X in the DVD player, and we'd have like 5 people working out in the garage at one time. And I remember when I was 14, I remember very, very specifically, P90X2 came out, and P90X2 was a sort of like a given birth by Dr. Marcus Elliott, who is the founder of P3, Peak Performance Project in Santa Barbara, and they now have a branch in Atlanta, Georgia. And I remember at 14, I remember being at study hall and being in the library of my high school and looking up, what is P3, what is Peak Performance Project, finding out about PAP, what's PAP, post-activation potentiation, and myofascial release, and going into my high school health class and asking my high school health teacher, what's a foam roller, what's myofascial release? So always having those questions. And I remember very specifically looking up on my computer an internship at P3. And I remember seeing what the qualifications were, what you would need to do from a biomechanics standpoint, from a sport performance standpoint. And I remember saying, I want to do that. That is exactly what I want to do. I was lucky enough to 10 years later actually earn that internship. And in 2022, I actually completed that internship in Atlanta. So really just looking at everything, I got a scholarship to go to University of Wisconsin-Madison. I was very lucky to receive that scholarship, full funding. I went there. I was pre-med. I wanted to follow in Dr. Marcus Elliott's footsteps. But along the way, trying to go the orthopedic route, I bumped into biomechanics lab, Dr. Dan Kobian. I actually have a call with him later this afternoon. We stay in touch a lot. Dan gave me an opportunity at a neuroperformance lab. And from there, I got into motion capture. I got into force plates. I got into surface level EMG testing. And that just kind of skyrocketed me from, okay, maybe I don't want to go to medical school. Maybe the orthopedic route isn't for me, but I can apply this sort of sports science to sport. And at the time, I wasn't working with basketball players. It wasn't until I had graduated and I went to P3 for that internship that I met Leah Borcan, I met Eddie Demas, I met Nick Gibson. And Nick really took me under his wing. Even though I was a biomech intern working under Leah, Nick introduced me to a lot of the basketball players that were there. And being housed in the Atlanta Hawks facility for 3 months, I woke up every day like, man, pinch me. This is exactly what I've wanted for my entire life. So getting that early exposure, followed that up. I went to a summer internship at Kentucky and was in Olympic sports, and that was great. But I knew I wanted more data. I knew I wanted to be more involved in basketball. I had a PhD offer and a master's and 2 master's offers to go. And so I reached out to a couple of different coaches in basketball, was lucky enough to go back home and work under Dr. Adam Petway, who spent years with the Sixers and the Wizards. And so I got to be back at my home base in Louisville and working under Adam and Ren Vale and Dr. Ernie Reimer and Paul Jones and all of these absolutely incredible practitioners in sport was, I mean, a dream come true. It was a think tank every single day to be able to go in and work with Adam. And I mean, I've got his book right here. Like, I mean, to say I'm a disciple of Adam Petway is an understatement. I mean, everything that I think about basketball when I'm at practices, when I'm thinking about joint angles, I'm thinking about guys going to the penultimate step, I'm thinking about transition offense. How fast are these guys accelerating? Is it their first 3 steps that we need to improve? Are they heading to their left, their right? Are they a 1-foot jumper, a 2-foot jumper? Like, these were the questions that Adam would pitch to us. And then you go and you jump on a force plate and you look at their RSI, you look at how the chronicity of a season and how they're changing. You look at the GPS data. Adam really showed me what was possible. And it really was like, okay, this is exactly what I want to do now. Luckily, got the chance to come to Evansville. I was a GA at Louisville and I was ready to make that next step. I remember Adam poked his head out of the office and was like, hey man, big opportunity came up at Evansville. I know like this is your hometown, but like if you want to make this jump, this is men's basketball, and a GA in basketball does not come up very often. Most people don't want to really give up the men's basketball position, and the fact that they're giving it to a GA. Luckily, Alex Hay here at Evansville, and a great mentor in allowing me to kind of work autonomously. And I came here, David Ragland, the head coach, hired me. And I'll never forget walking into his office 2 weeks into my GA. I'm not even a full-time salaried employee, walking into David Ragland's office and saying, hey, so I worked with this stuff at Louisville called Catapult. And, you know, I kind of knew a little bit, but it was mainly my mentors that ran this. But I think this is a really incredible tool that we're very limited on resources. If you're willing to spend some money, I will give this everything I possibly can. And luckily, Rags is the incredible, trusting person that he is. He's the best coach in college basketball, in my opinion. And he pulled the trigger, and I've just kind of ran with it ever since. And the way that we communicate is, I mean, second to none. Rags is really what makes this entire operation happen.
And so, I mean, who'd have thunk it that you're in your garage doing P90X, not only getting in shape, but also laying out your career path. So that's good, you know, but you know, you talk about the relationship you have with Rags, and I look at the record this year, and I look at the record. Let's break this down. 5-27 last year, 6 wins the year before, and the seasons before that 9-9 wins. So for the first time in 5 years, you're over the 10 win mark. I mean the difference is drastic. And I'm wondering, I mean, has the data played a role in the dramatic increase in wins this year?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. So last year was Rags's first year. That was the 5-27 year. And this year, recruiting goes a very long way. But what happens when those recruits get here? And so at the beginning of the season, when I pitched KINEXON to coach, it was hey, I'm probably going to be throwing paint at a wall for this entire year, but like, let's be as calculated as possible with like, what did I say? I said, you know, if we're going to throw paint at a wall, let's at least make sure it's a good abstract painting. And so Rags and I and our athletic trainer, Hung Chang Woo Duke, we will meet damn near every single day to talk about the data. How do we want to undulate going into these next couple of games? Hey, we've got 3 games coming up. Send me the practice report, and I'm going to send out an estimated load based on previous practices on what our estimated load is going to look like for tomorrow. So it's been an incredible resource for us to be able to make day-to-day decisions, and then also be able to look back at like historic, okay, we had 3 games in 5 days, or hey, we had 3 games in 7 days. What did we do then that we should probably do now, or where did we mess up that we can make adjustments now? And I think a lot of that credit just goes to our incredible athletic training staff, and then also some support that I have from Cole Gossett at Louisville, who's a football intern there, who has helped me build out an incredible system that I'm able to just one-stop shop be able to send Rags day-to-day reports, hour reports, whatever he wants, that allows us to make better informed decisions about how we progress.
So how do you go about collecting the data?
So very simple. What is the most reliable? Again, I always think about the two pillars, reliability and validity. And if I can't optimize both of those, then there's no point in me doing what I need to be doing. So from the reliable standpoint, I make sure that I always bench guys when I'm handing out units, no matter what, no matter if they're getting their shots up before, I'm silencing that data, because when it comes to the specific phase or the specific session, I want it isolated to the start of walkthrough all the way until free throws are done, and making sure that every single phase is labeled exactly the same every single day. And if it's not, I make sure to tag it both in Excel or tag it within KINEXON itself as a match day -1, a match day +1, a match day -2. That way, when I look back at all of my drills in Excel, once I've pulled everything out and exported, I know there's no mess ups. I don't have to go back and relabel things. I don't have to, I know exactly what I'm getting from a ODO. I know exactly what I'm getting from an offensive execution. And so that right there gives me my validity piece. It's labeled the exact same. And I know when I send out a practice report or an estimated report, say, hey, tomorrow we're going to do ODO execution, D breakdown. It's boom, boom, boom. You're going to probably get about 350 load between there. And so that's where I know I'm being accurate with my estimations.
And so when you are collecting, do you have help? I mean, you're not the biggest school on the planet. I mean, do you have a team of people, or does the software make it easier for you? How does that work?
Absolutely. The software helps out a ton. I mean, it's a 4-step process pretty much to set up a session. You put your players in the session. You have them labeled as groups. We have it labeled as rotation and scout. I messed around with a lot of different labelings prior. I tried wings and forwards and guards and all that. But I found, especially as we got into our scrimmages, when we were doing in-house scrimmages, it was trying to exchange 10 guys at a time versus the 5 in real games. I remember thinking, oh man, if I know I'm having double the volume right now, but if it's anything like this, then it's going to be chaos. So let's just shorten it down to rotation and scout. And when I export to Excel, I can change anything that I want once I get it to Excel. But for the most part, within KINEXON itself, I'm going to add my players to the session. I'm going to give them a label. I'm going to add some sort of goal based on if I have an RTP guy or not. And then that'll be great to be able to flag. And then again, I would say for the most part, Duke helps me out a ton, but I pretty much orchestrate the majority of the KINEXON stuff when it comes to the collecting, the management, the reporting, all of that. We don't have a ton of funds around here. So it's not like we have an AMS system, an API system, or anything like that. Like everything that we have, as I don't want it to sound arrogant, I've kind of built myself.
But hey, I mean, that's what it, that's what always comes down to money, right? And so, if you're not going to add extra people, or you're not going to go raid the math department or the analytics, the department for some students that are looking for an internship. I mean, if you have to put it all on your back, but I mean, I guess the nice thing like you said, you were able to play around with it and set it up the way you want to set it up, and then you can make it understandable for Rags and everybody else who's looking at it, right? And so one of the things that I love to ask is, this is a great question for you, I think, because you get the system and you're on your own. You're trying to figure all this stuff out. You're going through. I don't like setting up wings. I'd rather do it this way. What about the metrics? One of the things I like to ask people, and Phil Lineman, our NBA guy, he coined the phrase the metrics trifecta. And I bring it up on all the shows, but I just think it's great because, you have all of these metrics to look at, but, Phil says, you know what, especially if you're just getting started, you could boil it down to 3. Now he has his 3, but everybody is different. So I'm curious, what is your metrics trifecta? What are the top 3 you would say that you are like your go-to, and that the data that you gravitate towards every day first, your top 3?
Mm-hmm. Jesse Wright told me the same thing. When he piloted KINEXON with the Sixers, he said, man, there is one thing that I encourage you to do in the first season. It's just pick a volume metric and stick with it, and do not deter yourself, because volume is probably going to be the most important thing that you need to look at. Outside of that, find yourself an intensity metric, and then maybe in that second year start to deter from there. But I would say accumulated acceleration load is our volume metric. That way we take into X, Y, and Z planes. Accumulated acceleration load per minute to look at an intensity metric. And then I like to look at what I consider, so I know a lot of people have a different view on density, but for me, I view density as frequency of exposures to load and intensity. So I don't necessarily get that density metric from the KINEXON system itself, but I get it when I export to Excel. And basically what I've done is I've either created an average or a summation of all the daily load. And that way, when I look at my dashboard, I'm able to see the frequency of exposures for each individual athlete and rotation and scout. So I get my volume, I get my intensity, and then it's okay. They hit a total of 1,400 load, match day -2. But where exactly did they accumulate that 1,400 load, and how close to match day is that?
So let's start to spill into the insights here. So you start doing this, you get your 3, you're locked in, you're looking at this stuff. Like what are some of the things that I don't know, kind of floated to the top for you, and you're looking at it and say, boy, you start figuring some things out, right? Like what can you, and you don't have to name names unless you want to, but you don't have to name names, but you don't have to give away any secrets. But I'm just wondering, like where were those first, what were those first couple of aha type moments?
For sure, looking at efficiency of players. And
what do you mean by that? Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Knowing your players. So again, a lot of my influence comes from the people I've worked with. So Adam published a paper looking at different level of basketball players and their efficiency on court. And so when you look at LeBron James, for example, he has a lower load than most of probably the players that are on his team, because he knows where to be. He knows how to get to his spot. He spends less energy. And yes, his probably of moments getting to his position, he probably has a higher velocity or a higher acceleration getting to his spot. But once he's there, he's there. And so he's able to know his actions and know where he's supposed to be, versus you look at younger athletes, you look at your freshmen, you look at your high school players, you look at your middle school players. A lot of them are just running around. There's no real, like, it's not controlled chaos. It's complete chaos. And so it's been really interesting to track live during practices and notice our freshmen, how inefficient they can be, and just seeing their efficiency strictly from a volume perspective get better and better and better and better.
So essentially they're basically wasting steps. Is that kind of how it is, and putting more stress on their body when they don't need to? Is that it?
Exactly. 100%.
And so go ahead. Yeah. So break it down for me. When did that, when did you figure that out? Like, man, oh man, these kids are just running around too much.
I think honestly, when we made the jump from summer to preseason, I know that sounds maybe a little bit too early, but we would have simple sets in the summer, like chin and hit shooting or just sort of skill work. But the moment that we got into actual preseason practices, it was like, wow, how did he triple his volume? Oh, because he doesn't, of course when you look at practices are, 2.5, 3 hours versus the 1 hour sessions in the summer, but still seeing that just spike, and okay, there's gotta be something to it. And then following that trend for the next couple of months throughout preseason, going into the season, either players dramatically, came down, or they just stayed at the same. And you're like, wow, okay, you're a freshman guard. I see you on the sidelines. I don't like to bench guys all the time during drills, because I really like the raw data from a phase, because it's basketball. They're going to stand on the sideline for the majority of the time. And then they're going to run really, really hard, and they're going to accelerate, and they're going to dunk. And so I don't really like to over bench. I don't like to use the benching metric or the benching feature too much, unless it's primarily in game or it's coaches yelling at them or whatever it might be. So watching that kind of progression from summer, where I expected an acute spike, which happened. And then watching that as season went on, seeing those guys that stayed high gave me a lot more kind of vision into their efficiency versus the guys that then started to figure out practices. And then when we got to games, I mean, that just snowballed.
So is it a matter of it's like the old adage, the quickest way between 2 points is a straight line? Is that essentially, do you start getting the guys to understand when they're running their plays, you look at it and say, look, you're running on an arc, make a straight line to go set that pick. Is that the kind of stuff? And again, I don't want you giving away any secrets, but I'm trying to visualize it. Is that it basically? Is just, getting between from point A to point B in a straight line?
Get to your point and sprint your ass off, plain and simple. Like a lot of backpedaling has become a disease in basketball, in our opinion. And we get to your spot, sprint, just turn around and sprint. And I think that's just kind of what we've seen is get to your spot, make your cut, and wait. Do your cut when you need to do your cut, but make sure it's as aggressive as humanly possible. Get through that screen as aggressively as possible. We talk a lot about the first 3 steps in transition, me and my guys. So I half court sprint them every match day -1. And so I looked at on KINEXON, I look at acceleration load max isolated to their half court sprints post warm up. So first off, I know that it's a consistent warm up. So it's from a reliability standpoint, it's done every single match day -1, and it's precluded by the same exact warm up every single week. And so when I look at their acceleration load max, I'm able to see what is their max acceleration achieved during, it's a 75%, still kind of a warm up half court sprint. And then it's a 100% half court sprints. And I use those accelerations to I always tell them, I say, guys, first off, we have 3 rules to this. 1, no false steps. Again, going back to some of what Adam published in literature on Achilles injuries, you look at that false step where guys shove that back foot back into a lunge before they sprint. That leads to a lot of Achilles injuries. It happened in the Super Bowl during a warm-up. I think that went viral. So that was a big mechanism that Adam pointed out. And so I'm always talking about our guys, no false steps, minimize your false reps. So we just go on ready, set, go. And then some guys will mess up and I'll just say, no matter what, if you mess up, go as aggressively as possible. And then I always tell them it's your first 3 steps in transition that matter the most. So let's focus on this. I know this is a really long-winded answer, but essentially it's me telling them the player that can accelerate the fastest, that can accelerate the best and the most efficiently is the player in basketball in our 94 by 50 feet that is going to dominate the game. Plain and simple. If you have the fastest 3 steps, that is where we are going to dominate the game. Because after those first 3 steps, particularly in transition, most players start decelerating. And if you are the primary ball handler, you're really dictating the pace of the game, especially in transition. And so that's what I'm trying to coach into my guys. And it's crazy the feedback I get from our guys. I'll have them on the line and you'll hear guys, first three steps. Like they get the data, they get the rationale. And it's just kind of cool to see how a half court sprint drill has become like a basis for what we do. And the guys get why we do it. And the data helps us make that story happen.
Yeah. And the fact that backpedal is now a curse word on the Evansville campus is really intriguing as well. But that's something you never think about. I think about all the, Larry Bird, taking that shot and then backpedaling down, or even Steph, taking that backpedaling down floor, or what is it? What's the first thing, right? Transition defense, find your man, right? So you're backpedaling because you're looking, back the other way so you can find your man, but what you have come to find out is you're wasting so much energy, right? You're putting so much more stress on your body because, and I'm guessing, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. So I guess the logic behind it is you can't backpedal as fast as you can when you turn and run. And so you're probably taking a lot more steps because you got to backpedal and you take more steps where you're more efficient if you just turn around and run to the spot.
Get to your spot. Teams that get set in their half court defense defend better.
And this all came out of this data that you're looking at. That is insane. And to piggyback off your Achilles, I know you did a lot of work at the University of Wisconsin with ACL injuries and things like that. I'm curious, so you worked as a clinical researcher at the Badger Athletic Performance Laboratory, and you were specializing in ACL reconstruction biomechanics. Along with the Achilles, the ACL, these are the two big ones I think we hear about the most. Do you see some of these same, and now we're kind of spilling into the action a little bit, but do these insights also, can you apply them to other, like these injuries that we see, these non-contact injuries like ACL injuries?
Mm-hmm. Right now, I would say we're pretty lucky that we haven't had any catastrophic injuries so far this season. And a lot of times I view those as more of our acute catastrophic, that as much as I try to follow the data, I haven't seen too many things in the literature that have given me any.
So not a lot of correlation then is what, I was just curious because you're a little, you see, you're in the weeds on this, on the ACL stuff. And I was just curious, and that's fair. Like if there's not enough data yet, there's not enough data. Yeah.
It's more of the biomechanical positioning at a moment of time. Like, are you having the leg casting? Are you coming into a drop? Are you coming into a drop stop or a jump stop? Like those type of, you look at Clay again. This I got to shout out Adam. It goes back to Adam. The leg cast when Clay tore his ACL. Like that's a mechanism when Derrick Rose tore his ACL. That leg cast. When you the player flying one leg out, trying to keep his balance while the other leg is posting into the ground. Like that's a mechanism of ACL tear, and there's a lot of shear forces going on at that knee joint. Luckily, what we haven't had at Evansville is any of those catastrophic injuries. But when we have our what makes most people in basketball miss playing time, it's the lateral ankle sprain. And so we've had quite a few lateral ankle sprains, but with the data we're able to RTP those guys, bring those guys back so quickly, and having a dedicated athletic training staff to help prepare those guys for their on-court track activities is wonderful. So I would say we've been lucky there.
Well, can you mention though, the return to play protocol, how you use the data on a return to play protocol? I mean, just, in a general sense.
So we look at it from first off a chronicity standpoint, so like a chronic standpoint, and then an acute standpoint. So when we have our lateral ankle sprains, and let's just say it's a grade 1, we know a player is going to be back rather quickly. So there's never, and it depends on if it's a rotation guy or a scout guy. A scout guy, we can take a little bit longer bringing them back. We're still going to be super aggressive with our treatment. And Duke and I, again, our AT, are very much on the same page. We talk about this data. I texted him not even 30 minutes before this podcast. It was like, hey, do I need to have any updates about guys? That way we can start estimating different practice loads for different guys. But so we look at, an ankle sprain, for example, a grade 1, we know guys are going to be back rather quick. And so we mainly just, once they're done with all the rehabilitation and they finally get on court, okay, we're going to start tracking you. What do we track? So any practice or on-court activity that is not a full participation, I label within the system as an RTP. And that way it's consistent and it's reliable. Is it valid? Maybe not necessarily, but it allows us to know exactly what we're working with when a guy is returning to play. And so, for example, continuing with the ankle sprain, I will do extensive plyos. I will do jump rope. I'll do rudiment plyos. We'll do down and backs. We'll do any sort of isometric, on the sidelines sort of work. And we'll keep that load just because it's time on their feet. It's time on their feet. They had a boot for a little bit, and we're keeping track of that. Obviously, the metrics are then showing us, okay, he had his unit on for this amount of time versus this amount of time. So his intensity is different. But that's not necessarily what we're looking at. We're going back and we're saying, okay, how many jumps did he do during his RTP on day 1? How many jumps did he do in his RTP on day 3? Have we started to progress him in that? How many changes of direction did he do during his RTP on day 1 versus day 3? Those are the things that the other metrics that we kind of look at in a vacuum. And then when we have our chronic return, more of just a stress injury, or just a muscle injury, like a little strain or a hamstring strain or whatever it might be, that's going to take a little bit longer to come back. again, we can get those guys up to max speed again, especially if it's like a hamstring strain or whatever. I'm on the side where I'm very aggressive about trying to get guys up to max speed as soon as possible. These units allow us to track that player speed, and so that's been wonderful from that standpoint. But when it comes to the RTP for games, we do two different types of things. So one thing we started doing is we will look at games prior to injury, and I would take the median of all games that they participated in prior to injury. That way we use median instead of average, just to get rid of outliers, get rid of those random spike, those games where a player hits 500 player load in the second half, or a game that we go into overtime. Like I want to look at what's the most consistent data that we can use. So we would look at median first half load, median second half load, and then we'd have like a total load. So we, for example, will go 50% for a player's first game back, 75% of that median, 85 for that player's third game median. And maybe if we stay there, it depends on, do we have 3 games in 5 days? Okay. Do we need to keep them at 75? Do we need to keep them at 80? Those are just conversations then that we take this report, and I print everything off. I laminate it. I make it look really, really pretty. I take it into coaches, and we have an hour-long meeting about a player hit his third game for his RTP or his second game of an RTP. Hey, coach, we think based on the volumes of this week and his intensity from yesterday and shoot around or whatever, that we should hit 80%. What would you like 80% to look like? Because I'm not a sport coach, and I'm not the one calling timeouts. You're the head coach, and at the end of the day, you are my boss, and you make all the decisions. So like, what can we talk about? And the associate head coach is in the same room, the athletic trainers in the same room, and we are all talking about the KINEXON data. And coach, it's no longer minutes played. The minutes played is far out the window, because it just doesn't give as accurate of a description. And I'm able to track live behind the bench at every single game, and I'm jotting everything down when they go in, when I bench them, when I unbench them. What are they at? Coach, look at me. What's this player at? 300. Good. They're good to finish. We're at the fourth media. Boom. Like, let them finish this first half. Those are kind of the conversations and the day-to-day things that we're doing with RTP. Hopefully that covered it.
Well, yeah, but the thing is too, that's part of it. It's not only getting them back to the game, it's also making sure they don't re-injure themselves, as soon as they come back. And so yeah, no, that's a great example of how, the data is helping you get, not only get players back. And the other thing that, as you were talking, I was thinking about it, like this goes across all sports. This doesn't just apply to basketball, like some of the things you're doing. Do you talk to some of the other coaches in some of the other sports and maybe compare notes or say, hey, this is kind of what we did to get somebody back? Maybe whether it's the, women's basketball, and I know you're working with other sports, or football, or, do you talk to some of the other coaches about this stuff?
Very little. I actually lived with the soccer GA here, and, he is now down at High Point, and they use a different system. But while he was here, they were just kind of curious of, first off, what we did with the GPS tracking. And so a lot of it was just like, hey, I know you all don't have access to it, because primarily we as the basketball team are the only team on campus that has KINEXON. But what it did is it generated a conversation with other sports of saying, hey, well, like, how long are your practices? And they say, I don't really know, anywhere between 2 hours and 3 hours. It's like, well, if you don't even know how long your practices are, there's a simple volume metric to start looking at, because even that can tell you a lot about your, if you say we play on, I don't know how soccer exactly works. I think it's 2 games a week or maybe 1 game a week.
Yeah.
And at least college soccer. Like, okay, we know we practiced 3 hours the day before a game. Maybe we should cut that down for a couple of games and see how that goes. And then I told him something about like, just have a stopwatch and press click at the start of a drill and unclick at the end of a drill, write down that time. There's another volume metric. Take that total time and divide it by, or take that drill time and divide it by the other time, and you get some sort of look at an intensity. You don't have to have a GPS tracking system. As long as you have someone who's willing to write down a few numbers throughout a practice, you don't need a multi-$1,000 piece of equipment to understand volume and intensity.
But it would help. But see, that's a great, that sets aside as we round third and head home here, the actions that you're taking. You talked about the half court sprints and some of the other things you guys do. I'm curious to find out more about microdosing. I know that's big with you, and I've heard that term thrown around a few times. Can you tell us what it is and how you're doing it?
Yes. So there's probably a lot better practitioners out there than myself that know how to probably implement it best and probably know way more about the literature backing with it. For me, again, this all comes back to David Ragland. Rags is incredible in the fact that he trusts his staff more than anything else. And appreciative of him that when we were in non-conference play, everyone knows how crazy non-conference play is because everyone knows how crazy conference play is. But when you've got non-conference where you can go 10 days without playing a game, and then all of a sudden you have 3 games in like 4 days, your
Right.
head's spinning with the travel, your head's spinning with having it's all chaos. And so when we got into league play, I pitched to him, I said, hey, we're coming into the spring semester. We have a little bit more consistent schedule. We primarily play that Wednesday, Saturday. Something that I would really like to do, especially because we had now generated our KINEXON dashboard, I was able to look very, very, I was able to see the data very clearly every single day and submit reports to him very easily every single day. And so it got to where I was able to pitch to him and say, hey, can we break my 2 hours of NCAA rules up into maybe 4 workouts a week, rather than just 1 45-minute or 2 45 minutes. And then what this allowed us to do is we started bringing equipment on court. So I have a giant, I don't really know what to call it. I borrow it from the Ford Center. It's a giant cart. And I've just carried a bunch of like 600 pounds and a couple trap bars that were donated and a couple of barbells and a couple of weights from my old home garage gym down to the Ford Center. And we have it all just thrown in like very neatly stacked in this closet because we want to make sure that the Ford Center knows that we keep the stuff clean so that they can continue to allow us to use the facility. But I'll wheel it into the locker room right next door to our like UE locker room, and post-game lift is 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes tops. The guys are already warmed up. It's rotation guys only. They come in, they know on match day, we're going to lift really, really, really heavy. And we're going to hit anything above probably 80%. And we're going to hit like a heavy, like high force production. And then we're going to go and we're going to do like a plank, some sort of core in order to stabilize that trunk. And then maybe some sort of heavy row, maybe, and then some heavy, and like a heavy press with like a barbell, like a RDL or something like that. Match day -1. Again, a lot of my stuff is in reference to the quadrant system by Daniel Bove. So match day -1, I'm going to hit speed. Again, we're very limited on equipment. It's not like I've got Kaiser squats and force plates to look at RSI and all of this. No, I grab 2 bands and we do double banded broad jumps. We do penultimate step jumps. We'll do skips and bounds and a lot of lateral skips, just going back to like the basics of plyometrics for our match day -1s. And then match day -2, again, these are all like maybe our match day -2 lifts will typically probably be our longer, more of our 30-minute lifts, 30 to 45-minute lifts. All the other match day -1 and match day lifts are anywhere between 15 to 25 minutes. So those match day -2s are going to be our higher volume, our more extensive plyos, outside of just the extensive plyos that I have built into their warm-up. More of our yielding ISOs, more of our higher volume hypertrophy, specifically for our scout team. If they need a little bit more hypertrophy, that's where I'll hammer them. Even our freshmen, our rotation guys, that's where I can get a little bit more volume with them as well. More of our restorative circuits, or as Adam would like to call it, an upregulation of androgenic hormone circuits. So just really thinking about bodybuilding, not from a mass perspective, but necessarily just getting blood flow. A lot of our pulse work. So Todd Wright introduced Adam to what he called body blast. And it's basically a lot of quarter and half rep sort of stuff, just mainly just a blood flow style workout. And I'll do a lot of those for our guys. Say when we get to a hotel and our guys just need to get that bus soreness out, we'll just go and do body blast in the hotel gym. So that's kind of how I kind of look at things. Off days are off, low days low, high days high. I know there's a lot of better practitioners out there that probably do it a lot better than me, but that's really just how basic we try to keep things.
But, in a general sense, then microdosing is, like you say, you break it up into 4 15-minute but that's what it is, right? You're kind of doing what you like. Gone are the days of like the 2-hour lifts or whatever, right? But it's more about, again, the efficiency of it and maybe, working a little bit harder, but in a shorter amount of time.
Yeah. And the data, I cannot say enough how much the data has allowed me to make second by second decisions about my exercise prescription. If I can give any advice to anyone wanting to get into basketball, granted, I know I'm extremely young and there's probably going to be a lot of coaches that are going to laugh at me making this statement because I'm so young, but I make second by second decisions before about my exercise prescription. I might lose my job, but I don't even write my workouts until I know what the volume and intensities look like from practice in season. Out of season, completely different. I know we're probably going to hit this and I can do this and I can do this. In season is so crazy. The chaos is just, we travel so much. I will have something prepped. I'll have it written down. We're going to do 5 sets of 2 on clean pull. We're going to do this. And then I watch them warm up and I'm like, man, if I got them on a force plate and looked at their RSI right now, it would be terrible. And I can just see them and I get the data back and I'm live tracking. I'm like, dang, he hit 1,000 today. All right, there's no way I'm clean pulling him for max speed today. Like there's no way I can do that. So what the data allows me to do is, luckily we always lift post practice. And so I can just go, nope, I'm not doing that today. Nope, I'm not doing that today. Nope, not doing that. Okay, or we'll go into a lift and I'll say, hey guys, I have A block and B block and an optional C block. For the guys, I'll say, hey, rotation guys, raise your hands. I was like, I just got your all's data back. I'm just kind of curious. Raise your all's hands on a scale of 1 to 5. Do you feel like shit or do you feel good? And they'll say, even my guys that I know are robust as hell and work their butts off, they'll raise their hand and I'll say, you, and you. We're just going to do the ones that I star, plain and simple, because I know your sport volume is your sport volume and intensity is the most important thing. And I want you to recover. Like, I want you to be ready to go for next practice and next game. In season strength and conditioning is just we have to bend the rules around the chaos. And this data really helps me make better informed decisions post practice going into my prescription for them.
Well, and let me tell you, young Jeremy, that you are not the first coach to say that, and especially in season, you have a plan and the plan is out the window, and so you are not, and I've talked to, some very experienced coaches, and so, no, you are not alone. I don't want you to feel special, but no, like, yeah, I've heard that from a number of coaches that, you can, and it was like one of the coaches told me on this podcast, he's like, you always have a game plan till you get punched in the mouth, right? And I'm like, yeah, you're right, coach. I like, if somebody wanted to reach out to you and had some questions about microdosing or all the other things we talked about, just don't mention backpedal. If you reach out to them, just my advice, don't mention backpedal. How can they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So you can just reach out to my email, jp450@evansville.edu. I'm on Instagram. I'm not I'm not a huge social media person. If you want to reach out via Instagram, that's great. It's like Jeremy_Portillo, I think. Reach out to me. Probably easiest by email. I'll give you my phone number. I'm very easy to contact. But that's pretty much it. I'm not a big social media presence, as most people will probably see.
But, and you keep talking about, I'm young and this and that, but bottom line, coach, is whatever the hell you're doing, it is working. Because to go from, all the years of just absolutely nowhere near success with the Evansville men's basketball program, and then you show up on campus not even a year ago, and you have turned it completely around. And congratulations, man.
Appreciate it. Again, the players, all respects got to go to them. We have an incredible staff that allows me to do my job and trust me, and it's to work for this group is truly an honor, and it's an incredible opportunity to be a part of.
Oh no, you know who gets the credit? P90X. That's who gets the credit. I was wondering when you wheeled the cart of weights over, was the P90X DVD on there too? Good. That's good to know. I mean, you gotta go stick with the roots, right? Remember, dance with the one who brung you, right? That'd be funny if you busted that out one day after, just to mess with the guys. It's like, this is what we're doing today. And it's on the piece of paper, the only thing starred is P90X. That would be great. Coach, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing some great insight, on what you're doing over there. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And if you know a great coach like Jeremy Portillo over there in Evansville, who's doing great things, winning games and doing it with sports data and analytics, we would love to hear about them. We may ask them to be a future guest on the podcast as well. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at KINEXON Sports, or look for us on LinkedIn at KINEXON Sports and Media. Remember, we want you to innovate the game by collecting the data, getting those insights, and turning those insights into action. If you haven't yet, like or subscribe the podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.